Well, hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. Today's episode is brought to you by a couple of different companies. One is the Barista Series over at PacificFoodService.com. They have produced the Barista Series for decades now. This is the OG, the cornerstone of our industry's plant-based beverage movement. Of course, you serve it in your cafe. You can't really not serve it. And you need to look for a product that performs on the bar to satisfy your customers. And that's what they have produced. If you go to their website, PacificFoodService.com, they'll send you samples. It really stands up to the heat from steaming. The texture is great. The flavor balance is focused on coffee. Taste it for yourself and see how it goes. If you're really looking for the best plant-based beverages for your customers, then you should be trying the Barista Series from Pacific. Now, our friends at coffeebusinessconnection.com, Sarah Naylor has put this thing together where it is a collection of the best voices and resources in coffee to help coffee people, coffee owners, carts and businesses of all sizes, brick and mortars, have resources to really succeed, with the culture, with finances, with systems and management and leadership. So you need to go to coffeebusinessconnection.com to learn more about these live webinars and the resources that they are building that are living online right now, because we just need more good resources out there for coffee people, by coffee people. That's what this is. So go to coffeebusinessconnection.com. So I want to introduce the subject of this conversation, which is basically the role that coffee plays in facilitating connection with other people, connection to ourselves, creating space for those things to happen, by saying this is kind of the pursuit professionally of what we do. Like, we get in the numbers, we get in the details, but ultimately at the end of the day, the value that we bring is the value that coffee brings, and that is that space. And that is exactly what kind of motivates our guest today, Grant Garry, who is an actor and director and is now producing a film and releasing episodes of a film called Room for Cream, exploring the culture and the art of coffee, the backstory, and what it facilitates in our lives. And it's kind of a really cool conversation we have with Grant today, who is a filmmaker, an actor, who is a certified grief educator. He actually directed a documentary you can find on Prime and a lot of other places called Meet Me Where I Am, which is all about love and loss and finding meaning moving forward. It's a very well done documentary. In his acting career, he has played the Cowardly Lion on The Wizard of Oz at the Opera San Luis Obispo. His credits include Disney's Beauty and the Beast, NCIS, Los Angeles, Legally Blonde the Musical, Black Cat, Night of the Living Deb, Sweeney Todd, and Cinderella. And one of the things that we explore in our conversation today with Grant is the idea of the connection almost between coffee and acting, in the sense that we're producing some kind of an experience for people to enjoy, either solitary or with other people. And so today, I hope that you are encouraged to look deeper into the role coffee plays in your life, in the life of other people, and feel encouraged by Grant and I's conversation. So here now is my conversation with actor and director of the film Room for Cream, Grant Garry. Well, Grant, welcome to Keys to the Shop. How are you doing today?
I am well, thank you.
Oh, good. Well, I'm excited to chat with you about coffee and conversation and the project you're working on, Room for Cream, and just the whole thing that you're diving into it. And I really enjoyed one of the episodes that I saw on your YouTube channel where you're schooling somebody on coffee, like you're the first and second and third wave of coffee. And it's really fun because, we professionals, we kind of like to get into that a lot. And it reminded me of a lot of conversations I had. So it's like, you're doing the good work.
That's funny. I was actually thinking about the waves this morning, and it's like, I don't need to talk to coffee professionals about the waves. Like it's kind of like, I did this other project, this other documentary on grief. And if I go on a grief podcast, I don't need to tell you about the stages of grief. But
Right.
if you're not part of this community, then maybe we'll open up the conversation a little bit about it.
Exactly. It's good to know some history of where we are in the span of lots of movements of coffee. But I'm interested in the movement of coffee that you're in personally. Like, how did you get into coffee? Because people don't just like start documentaries about coffee and its role in our lives without really liking it. So where did your journey start?
Yeah, that's true. I would say I've always, kind of been a coffee drinker, but the sort of journey, if you will, started maybe back in like 2017 or 18 when I started to notice I was participating in this ritual, which I know, you hear a lot of people talk about the ritual aspect of coffee. But what I started doing was I would wake up in the morning and I decided I'm not going to watch the news. I'm going to turn the news off. And I started to experience just these like moments of silence with just me and a cup of coffee. And I noticed that there was something bigger going on there. And even till this day, like most of my ideas come to me in those early morning hours when I'm having that time alone with my coffee. And I would now, smash cut to 2026 and I'll be journaling in the morning if ideas come to me for projects or things that I want to work on, or I'll read. So like I replaced watching the morning news with reading, and I mainly would read nonfiction. A lot of it started because I wanted to better myself and get better at things that I was working on, whether it be film or telling stories, what have you. So sort of a whole personal development aspect went along with it for me as well.
It's interesting. So in that sense, coffee was the gateway to creating space for you to just connect with yourself a little bit more.
Absolutely. And I mean, and to the title, Room for Cream, I mean, the room is the space that we create for that experience as humans, and you can fill it in. It's like Chuck at Jones Coffee Roasters always tells me, like, it should be like a blank canvas. Like the shop is a blank canvas for us to build upon as the community. Yeah. And I feel like that can be partly an individual experience as well, where that room, that space is the space we create, and we fill it in with things that we're passionate about and things that we want to create and experience in the world.
Yeah, that makes sense. Is in this pursuit of connection and creating space, because you're having to fight for space because everything is kind of vying for your attention and your energy, and we seek out third places. It feels like this is a third place for you personally to have your morning coffee, but then there's coffee shops. I wonder if you experience the same thing when you go to various cafes where you live and when you travel.
Yeah, that's always interesting thing to think about, because so many places now are like these like minimalist white walls, nothing on the walls. Everything is like sharp and edgy, and the coffee's good, but you don't really feel like you belong there. And so I like a place that has a little bit of dust on the walls and a little bit of rust on the chairs, and a place that's been kind of lived in. I like a place where there's art on the walls, and that can be done by people in and around the community, or there's gatherings for live music. And so to me, going to a place like a third space, like a coffee shop, should be about community and about experiencing each other as humans.
Yeah, it's interesting to think that we do have these spaces that have evolved to be a little bit more clinical in their feel to be a successful space. However, the success that you're talking about, kind of like soul level success, enriching yourself through the arts of, literally art, or, music and things, even just being social. There's a sense of which you have to be okay and overcome some inhibitions in order to enter into a deeper level of fulfillment. I imagine it's kind of the same in acting. I mean, I'm not an actor, but when you're taking on a role, there's got to be some empathy and understanding and going beyond what you're comfortable in to be able to enter into something new and deeper.
I was just writing a piece for a friend's book that I kind of had this realization that, like, whenever I approach an acting role on stage or on film, but now as I'm older, I probably didn't do it as much when I was younger, but I pull from personal experience and put that into these roles in an attempt to make these characters more human and relatable. So yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think there's just such a personal connection to those types of things.
It's a little dangerous to some people to do that, to enter back into something that might be a little bit hard. I mean, I know you're a certified grief counselor, and, you know, there's a lot of our histories that are just that part that which we do not speak of.
Right. There are certainly, I was saying the other day that I played the Beast in Beauty and the Beast in the musical on stage.
Yeah.
And, you know, I certainly pulled from experience of breakups and grief and losing people that we loved for that role. And yeah, as an actor, I think for me, it allows me to access those parts of me that I wouldn't otherwise do. Maybe, I don't know. Music certainly helps me with that, being able to access those deeper emotions, I think.
When we are sharing coffee with people and we're across from someone in a real conversation, you know, there's a vulnerability there, even if it's a quick conversation, and being able to connect and listen is a huge part of, like, socialization over coffee, showing hospitality. As you have pursued coffee through this project, you've shared coffee with a lot of people and talked about it, explored it. Imagine listening and exploring together adds a whole new layer to what coffee means in your life.
I think, like, to me, like, sharing coffee with another human is like that's like my version of what maybe playing the guitar is for somebody else. Like, I just love that's like a hobby. And I've had some of the most meaningful experiences with strangers too, over a cup of coffee. I mean, there are people, like in the series, like you'll see in Room for Cream, like some of these people that I'm talking with, you're seeing us meet for the first time. Like, the day we filmed could have been the first day we met, and we had some of the deepest, most profound conversations I've experienced in my life. So coffee is giving us the permission to actually have those experiences. Whereas if we were at dinner or something, it might not lend itself for us to open up as much as we do over a cup of coffee. It's just a little more stuffy, I think. And, you know, if you're at a restaurant, it's like, is this a date? Is this what are we doing here? And coffee is I don't know. It just allows us to sort of open up more and like I said, get to know other humans on a deeper level, which I think is a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And the more you do it, I guess, the more anticipation you have, even maybe a little bit more grace for the sharper edges that we have as people. But the payoff is worth it in some cases. You know, working in coffee as long as I have, and you do customer service, and people can be prickly. You see them at their worst, and you see them at their best too. So if you can take it all together in aggregate, then you can say, well, that's just the human experience. And if you really want to be honest and vulnerable, you say, well, that's my experience too. Mm-hmm. I'm that kind of person. And so when we share coffee, we actually reaffirm that we're all kind of like imperfect people enjoying coffee together.
Yeah.
I guess. Why did you decide that coffee was a thing that you wanted to make a documentary out of? I mean, this is obviously a big part of your life. You think it's valuable enough to help other people maybe take on some of what you've been practicing?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it wasn't, I have a deep love for coffee. So let's, put that in this column here. But for me, it was about, it was a journey of like finding myself and finding more of Grant and what Grant wants and desires and strives in life. And so it was kind of like a classic story of a boy on a journey and all the people he meets along the way and how they influence his life for the better. I was telling a friend the other day, I had originally started write, and I'm not much of a writer. I do write, but I've never been much of like a full script writer. And I wanted to write a script for a narrative feature film that I wanted to, produce at some point in life. I don't know. And just like halfway through writing it, I was just completely sidetracked and it just like hit me. Like I was like, I want to explore coffee. I want to like document this experience that I'm having. And I remember I was listening to the author of Chicken Soup for the Soul, one of the authors of that book. He said in an interview, your passions are your purpose. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I just kind of like quickly like wrote down things that I was passionate about. And it was like among other things, but it was coffee and filmmaking. And I saw them both like right next to each other. And I was like, oh, let's see how we can, let's see how those can intersect. And so that's kind of how it started. That's kind of how the documentary started.
How do you define that intersection?
Oh, I don't know how I would define it, but for me, it's been profound and meaningful because it led me to so many other things too. And there was a lot of overlap with this project and another previous documentary I did, Meet Me Where I Am, which was like, if we can all agree, kind of like to your point earlier, that we're all imperfect humans kind of doing this thing together, I think we're a lot more connected than we think we are. And so if you'll notice in Room for Cream, it's not a like quick cut, like sexy edited like piece. It's a very, and because you can find that anywhere now online. I wanted to get away from this sort of like doom scrolling society, and I wanted people to just sit with us and have a real experience. So you'll notice like in some of these episodes, it's like you're just there with us. I knew from the beginning I didn't want it to be just a talking head documentary. Not that there's anything wrong with those. Those exist and they're great. I wanted the audience to just be with us and experience it as I was experiencing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's helpful. And we, a long time ago, I was a manager and I was over 3 managers. And one of them was probably the best example of hospitality that I had him on the show. And because his philosophy was to acknowledge, welcome, and include people. That was his own personal mantra. And I thought that's great. We need to talk about that. But when you received his hospitality, it was so genuine. It was almost like you couldn't believe that it was real because we're so used to having a bit of a polished, refined version of, service voice. Anyone who's been a server, like, can I take that off the plate? Are y'all done with that? It's very much fake, but it's meant to be sincere. But it was just sincere, and sometimes it's awkward. And sometimes it's, there's space. God forbid there's space. Like the Room for Cream, you're like, no, Phil. Lest I be alone with my thoughts. Or receiving your praise. Like some of us are really bad at receiving love from other people. And if we're forced to, like, it feels bad, but then all of a sudden later on, you're like, man, that was really good.
Yeah. It's an odd thing because like I've worked in the service industry before and I love people and I love customer service. And I realized like a long time ago, I was like, oh, I can, like, yes, they're customers, but I can just talk to them like my friends and my family and people that I love and care about. And when you start doing that, I think the customers like, oh, this is interesting. They're not robotic. They're just like me. And so I think that like allows that sort of barrier to drop. Because I've been in, so many situations where, you're on the other side of the counter, like, can you just talk to me like a normal person? Like, where is that? And to your point too, like, it's refreshing. It's refreshing when you have someone offer you that love and care. And, sometimes you can tell, like, if people are having a bad day, and it doesn't hurt to like check in with them. And, if they want to, if they don't want to talk about it, they'll shy away from it, of course. But I think kind of just being there and creating that space for other people is nice.
Yeah. And you're describing hospitality in a sense that Danny Meyer calls, he says hospitality is something you do for people, not to them. And if you're sensing that they're pulling away, you're not going to force, more questions on them. If your friend doesn't want to talk about something and you just keep on pestering them, are you a good friend, or are you just curious to a fault, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. The intersection of all these things that you're doing, it's striking me, like we were talking about earlier, is similar to what I think a lot of us do, which is we see something that is a calling, is a vocation, it's a calling to start a coffee shop or pursue a career or in any area, but everything is kind of related, and story tends to be the thing at the center of a lot of it. So you're acting out parts of a larger story that will impact somebody's life in some fashion, in just the same as what we do if we build a space for life to happen in our community in a coffee shop. That's a platform on which life happens. And then there's the stories behind the cup that you also got to experience when you traveled to Origin. That is even a deeper level. I'm wondering how that impacted your perception of the industry, being at Origin with farmers and the trees where it's grown. How was that? How did that impact you?
Yeah, I think about that a lot. I interviewed the author Daniel Pink for this as well, and he's in an upcoming episode. And we talked a lot about story, and humans, I think on a fundamental level, love story. I love story, and I like telling story. I'm also going to name drop here, but I took an acting class with Jason Alexander. Couple classes actually. He's a great director, and he's amazing. And he said, when I go to a show, I don't care what the actor's feeling up on stage. I care what they make me feel in the audience. And so that's always something that ever since he said that to me, I've carried that with me as I move forward, because I can feel whatever I'm feeling on screen, but I want you, the audience, to also feel something too. Otherwise, I don't think I would be doing my job as a storyteller. And so when I went to the farm, I mean, it was such an amazing experience. I mean, just from a scenic standpoint, it was beautiful. And on a deeper level, you see these people who every day are out there tending to this farm. And this is, a lot of them, it's like their whole life. And I remember thinking, like, their whole life makes up for just my own little experience. I had just such a moment of gratitude, because it makes up for, I don't want to say a tiny part of my life, because I am a big coffee guy, but a much smaller part of my life than I think the labor and the heart that goes into what they're doing. And so when I cup coffee now, I always talk to Chuck about this at Jones Coffee. I'm always like, we are tasting like this bean's home and the soil in which it was raised and cared for. And that bean has probably touched about, 30 hands before it got to our cup. And so it's just kind of like something that I don't think a lot of people think of. I'm sure people that listen to this show think about, and people in the coffee community think about, but maybe just everyday grab and go coffee drinkers perhaps don't think about it that way. And so I remember having this moment and I say it in the documentary too. I was like, oh yeah, I'm fine with paying upwards of $5-6 for a cup of coffee, because now when you see the whole production, when you go through it. I mean, that was part of it for me. I was like, take me through it. Take me through the whole process. I want to go farm to table and see the whole process. And so, yeah, it just allowed for a tremendous amount of gratitude for what it makes up for my daily life.
Yeah, man, that's great. And the value that you put on it is directly related to the kind of stories that go before it. And, we're so used to consuming things as a utilitarian practice. Mm-hmm. And we're consuming them almost in a way to numb ourselves to various parts of life. Yeah. It's interesting with coffee. It's not only energizes you, it's got the caffeine, but the story behind it feels like a little bit of a lift to, if you understand what's going on. There's the concern for the sustainability of it, but just the thankfulness itself buoys you to know that this is a loved product created with love. And in the industry, we have language where we talk about the various actors in the supply chain, because we're all kind of participating right up until the point where that coffee is in the hopper of the espresso machine, ready to be made by the barista, and hopefully well. Sometimes it's not.
That's the thing. It's like I talked to roasters about, or I talked to Chuck about it. Actually, I'm just like, once it leaves and it goes to a shop or a barista somewhere, it's like you don't know what they're going to do with it. And sometimes he'll say, yeah. I'll hear people be like, oh, we had your coffee at, this space or this restaurant or this. And he goes, was it good? Because you never know how someone else is going to extract your espresso.
Well, yeah. And I suppose it's the same when you realize that somebody else is playing Tevye on Fiddler on the Roof. You're like, are they as good? My favorite was Alfred Molina. And
awesome.
But that's just a visceral memory for me from Broadway where my parents took us down. I'm just like, okay, so maybe there's a little emotion mixed in with that.
Sure.
But at the same time, cafes build up a lot of expectation. I'm curious from your perspective, what would you say defines a really great cafe experience, knowing what you know about the backstory of coffee and all that goes into it? When you get that cup in a commercial setting, what makes it the most memorable or special to you?
Well, before I answered that, you mentioned seeing Fiddler on Broadway, and my mug here is Sweeney Todd. And I'm not really a things person, okay, but I do have a collection of coffee mugs, which I think is probably appropriate for someone like myself, but they're from experiences that I've had in my life, and I know I'll use them because I experience coffee every day. But like this was meaningful to me because when my film Meet Me Where I Am was premiering in New York, I got to go with my family and see my film, but also we went and saw Sweeney Todd on Broadway with Josh Groban, and we got to see Josh Groban and Annalee Ashford in Sweeney Todd. And Sweeney Todd is one of my favorite musicals, and as a baritone, big baritone, I would say myself, he's always been an inspiration to me vocally too. So it was just a nice experience to have that I get to remember, among other things. Like that's not my only mug, but anyway,
right.
To answer your question, I think it's the other humans that are there. I think I went to Civil Coffee here in LA. It's in Highland Park. I went there recently and I said, oh, what drip coffees do you have today? And they had a couple single origin from Mexico. And I had just a cup in a mug, and it was just like that. For whatever reason, I was meeting a friend there to discuss some fun projects, so the experience was great, and the coffee was amazing. So it's a weird like harmony that has to happen there for me. I'm not speaking for anybody else, but to me it's the experience. It's a good coffee experience is a really good cup while you're sharing a moment with another human being. And the thing about that is we're present. We're present in that moment. We're not, for me, it's all about the now. It's all about what's happening right in that moment. It's not what happened. It's not what's going to happen. It's the present time, which is nice. And kind of to detach, unplug for a bit.
You mentioned this a couple of times. So there's that communal experience where you're present. Now you're present with other people, and then you're present with yourself, with your space in the morning, with your coffee and your Sweeney Todd mug. Give us some advice about being present in both those capacities. From your own experience, how have you kind of apprenticed yourself to that being present for yourself, and then also being present with and for other people?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think a lot of it has to do with turning your phone on do not disturb or off, or not having it in the room at all. And I said, I know it sounds silly, but for me, that was a big part of it. And I'd be lying if I said like I didn't struggle with it. Like even now, it's like it can be incredibly challenging. And so for me, that's what it's about. I can only read my book when my phone is not near me. I can only be present with that other person when it's, tucked away. And when you slow down, your mind slows down in a positive way too. We've all spent hours on our phone scrolling, looking at videos and stuff. And I think there's a time and a place for that. But if you're doing that all day and you're not really here, you're not focused on what's in front of you, and you could potentially be missing out on beautiful experiences and wonderful people, and just learning more about yourself and the human experience.
I think we kind of feel like that's what we're trying to do when we're on our phones, isn't it?
It is. It's like you'll see a video about productivity or like fitness or diets or something, and you're like,
yeah.
Oh, I should do that, so I'll save it. And then you never do it. You just see another video just like it.
Yeah.
And so it's like use one of those videos and then put it away and actually make a point to commit to whatever it is that to better yourself.
That's kind of revolutionary. And to take action on that one thing that is a good idea, but to not just continually consume good ideas and never apply them or test them.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's the whole part about like manifesting better things for yourself and following through on endeavors and projects that you want to work on. I mean, I know it's for me, it's like you can't just sit and like put something out into the universe and wait for it to I mean, yes, I know I'll get pushback on that, but it's like there is an element of taking action, taking steps every day towards your passion.
To kind of bring this back to coffee, I think it's like the idea of a gateway to help you do the thing that you kind of want to do. I'm a big fan of a book called Leadership and Self-Deception by the Arbinger Institute, and it basically, one of the things they talk about is self-betrayal. When you get the impulse to do something good for somebody else, something outward focused towards them, and you just don't do it because you're busy, or you're in your head, you're like, well, that would seem silly and that's not who I am, so it's against my brand. But coffee seems to be a thing that gives you an opportunity to sort of renew that version of yourself, rebrand, rethink the way that you interact with other people. And it sounds like all the conversations you've been having around coffee and having coffee yourself have really helped you transform relationships and just the way you even think about life and our inner dialogue.
It's so true. You mentioned rebranding, and it's like I feel like, especially with Room for Cream coming out now, it has allowed me to do that, because it's kind of like a cycle where it's like the coffee allowed me to experience more of myself and what I am, and it's like I was able to kind of see things more clearly with it, where it's like, if you go on like my Grant Garry Instagram, just my personal, my main page, it's mainly like funny videos, musicals I've done, and projects I work on. And then if you go on my Meet Me Where I Am page, it's more of like the serious side, because there's a time and a place for that as well. And so coffee has been at the center of that. It's been at the center of me organizing my life into these nice little buckets that sometimes spill over to one another, and that's okay too.
So now that we are sufficiently curious about Room for Cream, it's coming out. Mm-hmm. And there are some episodes that have come out on YouTube already. And there's a trailer. Tell us more about where we can find Room for Cream and your other projects as well, so we can stay connected to all this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do a lot of my posting and interacting with people on Instagram. It's just my name, Grant Garry, Garry, two R's. I worked on Room for Cream with my buddy James, and after going back and forth on it for a long time, we decided that YouTube was just the most appropriate place for it, and to make these episodes short and digestible. And you can watch them like all together if you want, or you can watch them. They're coming out every Monday right now. So every Monday we're having a new episode. We've shot about 10. And I wanted to leave it open-ended, for the possibility for it to happen again. I loved all the interactions I've had with all these people. So, and then you can find, my documentary, Meet Me Where I Am, is also, that's available on Amazon Prime, Tubi, Roku, I think Apple TV. So I'm really proud of that as well. And that again, there's a lot of crossover there, that human interaction, I think, is fundamental to humans. And for me, having that cup of coffee kind of gives us permission to talk to people and on a deeper level. Yeah,
well said. Well, Brant, I really appreciate you being here on the show. It's great to connect with you and talk about coffee. And I really appreciate the insights you've given us today. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I was honored to be on this. So it's funny because it's like we just met for the first time here, but I feel like we've we've known each other for a bit now.
There you go. The coffee does it again.
Yeah.
Thanks, Grant.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone. Well, I hope that you were encouraged by that, and just especially to the renewed appreciation for the role that coffee plays in our lives, and how this is true. If you run a coffee shop, if you've been a professional for a while, you have facilitated these kinds of meaningful moments. You have. And that should encourage you. That should, think about it for a while. Meditate on that. It really is cool. And I'm grateful for Grant and his project helping us sit down, enjoy coffee, and enjoy the idea of coffee and its role in our lives even more. So huge thank you, Grant, for being on the show and for your work. We really appreciate you. And if you want more information, go to grantgarry.com. You can get plugged into all that Grant does. If you want Room for Cream, hey, do you want Room for Cream? If you, the film, you can go to YouTube and search Room for Cream, or just go to Grant Garry's YouTube channel. And it's as easy as that. Of course, links are in the show notes. Now, if you have any questions about today's episode, any comments, anything that you want to talk about, I'm here. I'm here to talk. Let's talk. We could talk about coaching and consulting for your coffee business, for you and your team. Maybe you're opening a cafe, you need help. Maybe you have a cafe and you need help. That's what I'm here to do, is help. So check out chris@keystotheshop.com. That's a great place to go, my email. And also, don't forget, key holder coaching groups are coming up very soon, and this could be your opportunity to invest in yourself and your business in a way that really moves the needle in a positive direction. Don't forget also, Coffee Fest trade shows is coming up in New York City in March. The first weekend of March, that's going to be where you can find me doing, I think I'm doing 4 or 5 different presentations and workshops. So always running around busy. I have a booth. You can find me there. I think we're going to be doing the 8th, 9th, and 10th is in New York City for Coffee Fest. So go to coffeefest.com, get registered today at the show for you and your team. Definitely want to see you there. We're going to be doing some interviews at my booth, and I want to talk with you. So be cool to see you there. Again, coffeefest.com. And with that, it's the end of our show, sadly. But, there's always more episodes, and I appreciate you being here. And as always, I hope that this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.